Welcome to a special edition of Insider Outlook from the North American International Auto Show in Detroit. Stephanie, let me start with you and ask you, what is the story behind the auto show this year?
Well, this year we're looking at technology. We're looking at evolution of market segment. We've got several different sedans that are evolving and taking things forward. So a lot of it is evolution. What we're not seeing this year is a big standout, break the box. What is the future? We're not seeing a lot of that this year.
Dave, how about you?
I think if you look just a couple of years ago, you remember we were talking about Electric Avenue, and we were really, Detroit was trying to brand themselves as having this the future of propulsion, and we're not seeing that here at this show. This is there's really no news in regards to plug-ins or hybrids. It's really a performance-oriented and pickup truck news show, and that's, I think, a really big change from what people were just talking about a couple of years ago. Oh, hydrogen and hybrids. I mean, we're all going to be driving something like a Prius, but we're really not seeing that here at the show.
So without getting too long and involved, what drives that? I mean, why does something appear strongly one year and not the next?
A couple of reasons. I'm going to jump in if you don't mind. One of them, too, is we had CAS last week, and we had LA in November, and there were fuel cell vehicles introduced at both of those shows. So that sort of changed the landscape. The other thing is the automakers have been showing all of their development for the last couple of years, and you get to a point where there's now kind of going back to the incubator and working out what the next step is. That's part of it. Part of it is fuel economy. Fuel prices have stabilized.
What do you see as really coming on strong this year?
Compact SUVs is really kind of in luxury SUVs, that's where you're seeing the most growth for the next couple of years, although ultimately it'll taper off and that'll start to behave more like a natural segment. But right now it is a growing segment. That's really kind of as far as a growth segment that we're seeing. The sedans and the trucks that we're seeing here, those are both mature segments, highly competitive, highly important, high volume, but mature segments.
Luxury brands are really strong this year, or last year in 2013, and you can come see it at the show. You take a look at, there's debuts from Lexus, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi. This is a really important show for the luxury brands, and last year really goes to show that they have a lot of momentum. So, the good times maybe are coming back, and we're seeing some really strong momentum just behind the sales, and you can see that now we're seeing coupes and performance derivatives of all of these from these brands, which means that these are cars that people don't necessarily need every day. These are something where you can treat yourself, and that's kind of a sign of times are getting a little better.
Well, we know that the Chrysler Group has done a lot to improve its interiors. How has that played out among other automakers? Are interiors a really big focus, and how much does that matter to the consumer?
When you look at small cars today, from any brand, you look at it, and they're not necessarily the penalty box car that they once were. When you go look in a Dart or a Focus or any of the vehicles in that segment, their interiors are fantastic. I mean, we never 10 years ago they were not like that, and I think that's some of the things that consumers are now demanding: the latest in infotainment, and the latest in the materials, and they want it to look like some of their clothes. I mean, they have that same type of fashion that people get in, and things are nice to touch and feel good and smell good. And that's what's driving a lot of this innovation and change that you're seeing vehicles with shorter life cycles too.
Right. And the other thing is the interior is where you live and in your car. I mean, you walk up to it and you want it to look great when you're walking up to it. You want it to look great. You want it to fit you when you're driving down the road. But how you feel when you're driving it is going to largely be dictated by how you feel about the materials, how you feel about the controls. Are you frustrated by them? Do they feel good? To Dave's point, that we have great interiors now, which sort of makes it an interesting thing where you level the playing field on that.
Were there any big surprises when you walked in the door, took a look around, had a chance to kind of absorb what was happening?
I really don't think there was much of a surprise, actually. It was it's almost like there was a lot of information coming out before the show in terms of trying to get buzz going early, and it's kind of taken a lot of the surprise element out of the show. Doesn't mean that there's anything takes away anything from coming down and seeing it in the in the flesh, but or in the metal, I should say. But there really wasn't a surprise element this year. I mean, last year Ford pulled out their Atlas concept, which nobody really knew that was coming. That was a big surprise. There's nothing like that this year.
Well, there aren't even like huge. The Nissan sedan concept is probably the biggest concept that comes to mind, and it is really dramatic. I mean, I look at that concept and I think there's space for them to pull it back to a production level where you're still going to think you're moving things quite a bit. So I'm really impressed with that concept. But what else do we have for concepts here? So what I said earlier, I don't feel like we're exploring the future so much with this show is looking at evolutionary steps.
So again, based on what you've seen so far, what's hot and what's not?
Chrysler 200 is hot. And I'll say that in jest. But no, I was really impressed to see the exterior styling of that car. What I really like too is and especially in the front compartment, a lot of surprise and delight features for consumers. Like I said, you live in your car, and if you've got features in there that is going to make 4 or 5 years of living with that car easier, you're definitely going to have a better chance of maintaining that consumer's loyalty. So that's huge for that car. So that would be one of the hot ones.
Well, let me get your thoughts on this. One noticeable missing automaker this year is China. They're not here at the North American.
All of the China automakers.
All of the China automakers, right? Yes, exactly. They're not here. In the last few years, they've had a presence. Why aren't they here?
Well, actually, I think it's been a little bit hit or miss, and they've been. The first time they were here was, I think, in 2004. So, 25 years. 9 years, they haven't always been here. But I think that a lot of the reason that they're not this year is they're preparing cars that they think that will be ready for the U.S. and what they have now they recognize isn't quite ready for the U.S. market.
We've already heard some plans from 2 of them that plan to sell vehicles here in this country next year, 2015. So I mean, I don't think that I think maybe in a year we'll see them here in Detroit with some sort of presence, with some sort of production intent vehicle for the North American market. They have a lot of vehicles to sell back home. So, it's not like they're really missing out or anything. The biggest market is not the U.S. anymore. The biggest market is China. So why not just stay there for a little while and focus on fixing your problems there?
This has been a special edition of Insider Outlook at the North American International Auto Show. I'm Betty Carrier Newman. Thanks for watching.